Hey everybody, welcome to G4G on YouTube. Once again, we are back talking about Marvel Future Fight and the Marvel Future Fight boycott. So, in a shocking turn of events, unless you believe conspiracy theories, Marvel Future Fight by Netmarble has issued a statement concerning yesterday or this morning's or late night yesterday's patch, saying that okay guys, we hear you about the strikers, we're going to revert that. Now some people will tell you that Netmarble did that on purpose, knowing full well that they were sticking a toe in a hot tub full of alligators, and they saw that, oh yeah, these alligators are snapping, and went, yep, up, we're going to pull this toe back, we're going to change the hot tub, and you guys go free on your merry way. If you don't believe in that, then Netmarble has officially listened to the community and reverted the major complaint of the patch super quickly. I feel as if it's not a conspiracy theory when people say that Netmarble has been pushing the envelope for several years now. It started with the loot box fiasco, and then the inventory issue where things are going to expire in your mail, but yes, the old stuff will stay, but then new stuff is too quick, and then what happens when you're capped on Phoenix feathers and you hold them in your mailbox until you use them and then you pull them out. There's been a few times now where Netmarble has kind of poked the bear. I mean, like, oh, whoa, no, all right, okay, you're angry, cool. And a couple times where they poke the bear and they're like, well, you're still kind of hibernating. I saw you lift up an eyelid, but all right, we're just gonna take this table out of your den here. Just, don't mind us. We're just taking your kitchen table and your chairs. This is very interesting that they've reverted it this quickly. It gives credence to the kind of tinfoil hat thinking that they know what they were doing when they floated this out there. I'm not one of those types of people who's so quick to believe stuff like that, so much as maybe the outcry was good enough to get some change. And I'm going to spend quite a few minutes after we talk about Marvel Future Fight to kind of talk about my opinion of these strikes and boycotts in general. So they say, thank you for sharing your opinions about the FUD February update. And that is a FUD, alright. In a November update, a change was made for the co-op characters to use only one useful skill in order to improve gameplay complexity. But that lowered difficulty and the fun factor of world boss has been reduced and required rebalancing. Says who? I haven't seen anything from the community that's like, man, this world boss, this is boring. I'm going back to bed. Has anybody said this? If so, please point it out to me. And I actually mean that. I'm not saying there, prove me wrong, and then I don't care when you prove me wrong. I'm saying, literally, if people are actually saying this, please point me in the direction. Link me the Reddit thread, link me the Netmarble forum post. I don't know where people would have said this, because I just feel that it makes it more accessible to people whose rosters are blossoming rather than people who are just set in stone with their tried and true 58 million T2s and T3s and everything. To minimize the change in the supply and demand of materials due to the difficulty adjustment, we increased the supply of Cosmic Cube fragments in the January update. After investigating the cause of the difficulty decline, we discovered world boss movement had been excessively limited due to the short cooldown time for co-op character skills and the mind control effect. Therefore, we reduced the frequency of co-op character appearances and adjusted the mind control effect. However, after the update was released, meaning the FUD, we discovered an error where the tolerance ability was applied not only to mind control but other effects like defense reduction. So tolerance, if you play other games, is really, let's just say what it is, it's diminishing returns. However, most games where they have DR and diminishing returns largely apply it to PvP because nobody wants to be frustrated. And again, I used the example in the first video of playing World of Warcraft and being fear locked by a warlock or stun locked by a rogue, or three people ganging up on that person, all with a variety of stuns and incapacitations, and then literally having no chance to do anything for half a minute and dying. That's where tolerance, quote unquote, or diminishing returns comes in, but it's rarely ever applied in PvE. Can you imagine if you were playing Final Fantasy on your NES and you poisoned somebody and it was a long boss fight and poison was their weakness? What's his name? For example, Final Fantasy VI, that fight that Terra gets into with the big fat demon where she's alone, Humbata, something like that. I have it in my head mentally, and the name begins with an H, but I don't remember it exactly. Poison, I believe, was one of his weaknesses, bio, specifically. Can you imagine if he took 3 ticks of bio, and then the next time you applied the spell and only did 2 ticks, and then the next time you applied the spell he resisted? Terra would have been a shit splat on the floor, probably pink and fiery and sputtering to death like a dead cod. Really, tolerance, quote unquote, diminishing returns has no real place in PvE, especially in what is some of the endgame forms of Marvel Future Fight in World Boss Ultimates and ABX. Well, stupid. Okay, so we wanted to solve this issue through a patch, but upon further deliberation, we decided to remove the tolerance ability and revert the striker cooldown to its previous duration. Since World Boss Fun Factor, air quotes, has been diminished due to these balancing issues, we will continue searching for the solution that our agents will be satisfied with. In addition, we're preparing to readjust the maximum scores and rewards for ABX, as many agents have requested. Please keep an eye out for it. We apologize for not listening to our agents more in the past. We will do our best to provide a more stable experience, and unlike the other post, which had 900 plus negative related furry emoticons over there, we are now looking at 380 plus 4 plus 172 on the good side as compared to 40 on the bad side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Netmarble. You're the greatest. It's nice to see the explanations. Hopefully the devs can figure out a way to change WBU that keeps most people happy. I know it's tricky. You know what? You want people to increase the fun factor, then don't bring a striker that locks a boss down. You know, when you have these videos that say such and such a score without so-and-so, there you go. That's it, period. The without so-and-so, that's all you need to do. Or somebody in the comments said allow us to pick the response, or allow us to pick the ability of what the striker comes in with. Then maybe that will give you the difficulty curve back. This one, well done, at least we as the players and you as NM. The games deserve it. Respect. You've earned it. Speaking for myself, you've pulled it back by posting this notice and showing humility. It takes a strong person to admit their faults, but also the measure saying, okay, we got a bit wrong, and then just not do anything about it. He's happy that they said that and then did it. We as a community appreciate that you acknowledge these WBU changes were not good and that you as a devs are going to fix it. Also, I don't want to diminish the good part of this update, which are uniforms and so-so characters. Cough Baron Zemo. Keep reworking old players. Great that you shared your thoughts and a really questionable decision. Here, the fun factor was not diminished. That was a first impression from some players, but they grew to like it. Fun is diminished when you keep playing the same level in WBU. When your league gets one-shot killed by Thanos, the November changes were good. WBU is challenging. Props for a quick response on a bad situation. So it's largely positive. And I'm happy to see that a company listened so quickly. It's questionable, admittedly, that they did listen so quickly, but I'm not going to put on that tinfoil hat and say that I see lizard people when I put on my sunglasses. Kudos to Netmarble for doing this. The flip side of the coin is that Fox Next, with Marvel Strike Force, is not doing this. They are continuing to thumb their nose at the Marvel Strike Force community by putting up the symbiote Spider-Man setup that they've got going now, you know, the dailies and everything like that with the milestones, the offers for him, Cyclops right as everything started, Casino, who is a big name in content creator community over there, the heat he gets just increases daily. More and more people feel that Casino is shilling, that he is giving a lot of bad advice with the strike and the boycott and everything. He's saying, oh, you know, they'll learn, don't worry about it. And then Fox Next is showing that they're not learning, and people are beginning to believe that the merger with Scopely on that one is going to spell doom. And a lot of people are taking this stance on it, which I referenced in the first video.
No. 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 Devil man. Devil 666, the mark of the beast. No. Naughty. Naughty jungle of love.
Naughty pay-to-win loot boxes of love. Yeah, that scene is really, really appropriate when you're just horrified of something. So, permit me to rant a little bit on these community strikes and boycotts and wholesale sweeping changes that people do when they take to the forums and they mobilize and everything. I want to remind people of the old adage about learning from history. And learning from history is the single greatest strength we can do as human beings. Now, my generation was still very much steeped in learning our history to its fullest. And hopefully to its brightest and most neutral. I don't quite think I'm in the generation where textbooks are proven to be like ridiculously racist and wrong and everything like that. I'd like to think that mine was still a good bastion of free knowledge. But learning from history goes to show you that one of the most volatile periods in American history was the civil rights era in American history, the equal rights era, where we fought to bring up the disenfranchised. That period of time, late 60s, early 70s, and like that, hippies, Vietnam War, war hawks versus the hippies, college protests and everything. That period of time goes to show you that when you use your voice and you stand together, things happen. We could be in a completely different place, at least in America. For other countries that may be watching this video, I can't speak to your revolutions, but I'm sure you have them in your history. That revolution that was led in the 60s and 70s shaped the country into something that it is today, that at least tried to push it for as much equality as possible. It's not always super effective, if you want to use the Pokemon term over there. But largely, people found their voice, found their actions, and tried to do everything within their power to speak through that. When you have people who down a boycott or a strike or game journos who turn to their publication and post scathing responses to community backlash and everything, and say the community is entitled, that's the big word of the last 2 years, that's the huge insult that game journals like to use. And they're entitled because they're protesting something or they're boycotting a change or whatever. Those people are the old warhawks of the 60s and 70s. They are the parents of what everybody calls the baby boomer generation, that wanted to go to war and believed in a bad president or their actions at the time. Meanwhile, the parents now, who were the baby boomers back then, were the ones doing the majority of the protesting and seeking change. And it's now almost sad that it's spun around 180, that they're the ones with the money and being called okay boomer when they used to be highly progressive in their thinking and everything. But that's a different story. It proves to you that that kind of speech, those kinds of actions, have results and create consequences. Unlike, say, maybe the Fox Next one, but the ones that have gone on with Marvel Future Fight and Netmarble, the ones that have gone on with Bungie and Destiny, the one that has gone on with Anthem, which may reverse the course of Anthem and make a workable game, No Man's Sky, Star Wars Battlefront 2, even, it's not gaming, but somewhat related, the Sonic movie, Sony's Marvel Abdongers, as we like to joke about it, the Marvel Avengers game that's not released, with the "you idiot, you captured their stunt doubles," and Blork Widow with her squared Duke Nukem John Cena Jutjaw, and Ton't Stant, and Spee Rogers Tactical Dad Bod. Look at what we changed in all of that by using our voice. If you just go to the images here, I mean, you could see, like, that's not what she really looks like anymore. That's largely been fixed. People used their voice and they spoke out and they said, please fix this. Yes, we know it's not in the MCU. We don't expect it. And then Kamala Khan's footage started getting released and she looks pretty good. And then this one, look at how much softer she's gotten over here, and more Black Widow-ish, and more feminine, and less like the Wayans brothers' White Chicks movie. We did that. Gamers did that. And when game journos like to crap on movements like this and say we're entitled, we're bitchy, we're whiny, they don't realize that they are setting themselves up to look like the people who don't care, but gamers are. And that's where they fail in their complaints on it. Because we as gamers, we as media consumers, media publishers, if we care, we do protest, we do boycott, we do strike, we do take our wallets and put it away. We do reverse the Fry image of take my money. And we put it away and we go and get a cup of Starbucks instead. Because that's what dedicated and involved player bases and people do. If nobody cared to see Sonic, nobody would have cared to say, God, he looks atrocious. It would have been a laugh and we would have walked away. And now there's a movie coming out Friday that my girlfriend actually wants to see, and you know what? I wouldn't kick and scream if I went and saw it with her. It's pleasant company. It doesn't look like the worst movie in the world. It's Jim Carrey, who I've grown up with, dating all the way back to In Living Color. And, you know, I'd like to see if he's still got the chops. I think it's a viable movie, but old Sonic, I wouldn't have seen. She wouldn't have seen it. This game here, Marvel's Abdongers, I told you the struggle I had about thinking of pre-ordering this. I haven't yet, but I've got time. Now, hearing that they'll change things and that they have, maybe I will. You know, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the ridiculous grind if you didn't pay to win over there. the loot box fiasco of Marvel Future Fight, this current one, that's what dedicated people do. And when people dunk on the movement or drag it for things like that, they don't realize that they're setting themselves apart. Game journos can't exist without games to talk about and people to read what they're saying. If they piss people off, people who are dedicated, then they're not going to have anybody who reads them. The Pokemon community, which is not my community, but my girlfriend's very steeped in it, ranted and raved about Sword and Shield because Game Freak kept saying, oh, this, that, and the other thing because we want to do high-quality animations and blah, blah, blah. And there's videos all over YouTube of people saying, this is what we waited for. Like, and this guy, Distant Kingdom, he's really, really good on this. Watch his videos if you're a Pokemon fan and see if you agree with his points over there that, there's been Game Freak is lazy. There's another one. He compares it to old games. Pokemon fans said this and were in an uproar because they gave a shit. If they didn't give a shit, you wouldn't have somebody with over 500,000 views talking about how they messed up. Or this one here comparing it to the fact that it's the same animation of a 10-year-old game and everything. I got involved in watching these videos and I don't even care about Sword and Shield. Other than the fact that it was a birthday gift to my girlfriend on the Switch. So that's what makes me really sad. And here is the crux of it all. Here is the boiled down, distilled essence when it comes to developers who don't listen under current games. If you go back to the late 90s, the early 2000s, and you look at Unreal Tournament, you look at Half-Life, you look at Quake, you look at Duke Nukem, you look at Blood, 3D, Rise of the Triad, all of those and everything. If they were bad games and they were universally panned, a developer could sit there and go, meh. And we got the pre-order money, and we got the purchase money, and okay, we don't have to do anything ever again. We sold the game, you bought it, you purchased it, we have your money, and that's the end of the story. But now, when games are a live service video game, as Jim Sterling likes to say snidely, developers have painted themselves in a corner, and now the consumer has all the power that we actually didn't before. Here's why. Aliens Colonial Marines back in 2013 was a giant flop. Literally, within the last 6 months or so, one person, one normal Joe Blow person like you and I was in the code and discovered a one-letter spelling mistake. A typo right there. Fixing a typo makes Aliens better. This came out, actually in 18. Okay, it's a little older than I thought. In a post on ModDB linked in a thread on Reset Error, Colonial Marines modder James Dickinson 963 claims a spelling error in one of the game's INI files of the PC version was the reason why it was shit. Tether, that A that made it like Heather or Feather broke the game's AI because it's supposed to be Tether with just T-E-T, not T-E-A-T. Guess what? Gearbox, back in 2013, dropped back 10 and punted. They're like, okay, the game's awful, you reviewed us awfully, we got your money, you bought it, you pre-ordered it, nothing you can do now, nothing we're gonna do, oh well. And 5 years later, a community member fixed it, and now the game actually works. The consequence of nothing being loaded is that the zone tether function of the alien AI does not work. Based on some inferences made by looking at partial code, the initial post claims that the broken tethers hurt the AI's ability to flank the player and to move away from other enemies. In other words, there are behaviors that would be based on the AI reading its location in the environment. Here's a GIF of the unedited INI file you would have right out of the box. They're just running straight at you. They're getting shot. A little bit of a do-si-do two-step there. Here's a GIF of the edited INI file where tether is spelled correctly. They're more active, larger leaps, a pause. There's a jump at the character. You can see they go behind objects. They even do a leap at the end. They're saying it's maybe making a huge difference in the AI, but there's some. But that's an example of the old style of game. They produced it, they sold it, they got their money, they dropped back 10 and they punted. And then they went on to do other things. Fortunately, better things. In a live service video game, an actively living and breathing game with a heartbeat, let's say like Borderlands 3 with its DLCs, Star Wars Battlefront 2, which exists online, Marvel Future Fight, Marvel Strike Force, anything that leaves the bounds of your internet and goes out and talks to quote-unquote home makes the consumer have all the power, because we are expected to continually open our wallets and pay for this. We do subscriptions, we do game passes, we do loot boxes and all of that. If we shut that down under the new development model, we win. Because then a software house isn't taking money from an old project, moving it into the new project, making it good, getting a new influx of cash, using that money to make the next product or the next DLC. That's like buying a house, flipping it, selling it, making money. Buying a house, flipping it, selling it, making money. Move on, move on, move on. In a live service, you're renting to somebody. If I say to my landlord in a rental type situation, I'm moving out, I'm not paying anymore, you refuse to fix the heat and the water, blah blah blah, I'm paying you $52,000 a month to rent this shithole, I'm out. And then maybe the landlord doesn't get that $52,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment, a 3-bedroom, an 8-bedroom apartment anymore. Well, then they're out the money, and then they're out some disposable income. That means we have the power. The renter has the power. The game player has the power. We stop paying. And if you subsist on a consistent influx of money rather than a burst of money, do stuff with it, a burst of money, do stuff with it. If you just subsist on this drip dry money, when we take it away, you go away. And then those game journos don't have games to talk about anymore. Or they're the only ones sitting in the game that they claim they love when everybody else who's smart and is actually dedicated to it has bailed. That is where history shows you the power of our voice. No Man's Sky, from what I know, I've never played either the old version or the new version, is generally better as fixed. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had some fixes. Marvel Future Fight had fixes at least twice and listened to the community. Sonic listened to the community. We have power now that we didn't 5 years ago to talk about these things and make impact and make changes. If I bought... So Unreal Tournament 2K3 is largely panned as a shitty game. In between UT99 being good and UT2K4 being good. Epic Mega Games, Epic and DE at that time, they got their money from me. Cliffy B got his money from me. And then that's it. He's rolling around in his Lambo from me buying Unreal Tournament 2K3 because I was a dedicated fan. And he didn't have to support that at any further point in time. You didn't return things at that game. You didn't, and at that time, and what would you get? You bring it to GameStop, and they're like, okay, you bought UT2K3 at $40. We'll give it, if you want to give it back to us, we'll give you $5 and this fin of a dead goldfish. Do we have a deal? And you knew you had to take it. You're like, all right, whatever. Maybe can you give me 2 fins of a dead goldfish here? I mean, I feel like I'm kind of getting raped on this. Well, now we're the ones who can say we don't want to pay your gambling mechanics anymore. We don't want to pay your loot boxes. We don't want to have spent all this money building up Scarlet Witch and Phoenix and Rachel and all of that, only to have them nerfed and now be unusable. I can't get back the money that I spent on this, but I won't give you future money. And then that drip dry, that subsistence of living off of grass and drippings from the ceiling, if you're a Nirvana fan, it goes away and then they die. So unfortunately, dev houses probably thought they were being slick with these setups of buying to get into a beta, buying to get into a pre-alpha, buying to get into a live service video game, buying into loot boxes and day one DLCs and these paid DLCs that happen and everything like that. You know, if Borderlands 3 was a trash game and everybody hated it, and then a month down the road they're like, okay, so here's Maliwan Takedown, anybody want to buy this and play? And just crickets, just nothing out there anymore. That's it. Borderlands 3 dies. They don't produce more DLC. They can't take money from us. We've moved on to something else. And then Gearbox and 2K have issues. I mean, Battleborn was a prime example of it. Battleborn was forced to go free to play. Not necessarily because it was a bad game, they just tried to go up against Overwatch, and they lost. But the community told them something, and it shuddered. The community told Evolve something, and it shuddered. The community told Nosgoth from Sony. I mean, just countless games don't do it right, and then the community speaks and they go away and they stop spending and then the game goes away. And then anybody who says, oh, the community is just being bitchy winds up with egg on their face. I mean, Fallout 76, I will never touch. Bethesda keeps doing it wrong with the way they, quote, fix that and their reactions to people who have issues with it. Bethesda's really doing it wrong with Fallout 76. And it's beyond salvage for me. I will never touch it. And I was a little bit interested in it beforehand, because I did like Fallout 3 and 4. But eventually got bored of both of them, unfortunately. No Man's Sky, I don't really have an interest in anymore. I don't know that I had the most amount of interest in it before it came out. But I mean, think about it. No Man's Sky basically released as the game version of the bad Jurassic Park theme. Park theme. I don't know if it's really a harmonic. Yeah, but I mean, basically, No Man's Sky was this. that's really, that's No Man's Sky if you think about it. Yeah, a melodica. That's what it is. It's not a harmonica. It's the melodica. And look, Jurassic here. Look, this is exactly what we're talking about. I mean, that is a prime example there of a game that got crapped on that eventually got fixed because people wanted it to be fixed. And it did. Sonic the movie, that's going to come out Friday, like I said, that's something people were excited about and then very disappointed about. So I encourage you, learn from history. Learn from that turmoil of the 60s and 70s where cops were hosing down protesters and Kent State and all of that stuff. Learn what your voice is. Learn what your playing habits can do. Learn what your wallet can do. And, never ever get talked out of it. If the cause is righteous and it's actually believable and not something piddly, like you don't want to overuse spending strikes and boycotts over stupid shit. However, again, in a capitalist society, which is fine by me, we have the power. If we don't buy, if we don't spend, they don't subsist. And they'll be forced to do something else. And if they keep trying the same crap, there just won't be anything to buy anymore, because everybody will have retaliated against predatory actions like loot boxes. And then nobody will make viable games at that point unless developers wake up and change things and don't do that anymore, and then go back to something that we actually want to buy. So don't ever let any movement or boycott or strike that you're part of get downed. And when people crap on it and call you whiners or entitled or bitchy or just shitty gamer community being toxic and everything like that, you remember what history did. You remember what college kids did sitting in on steps somewhere. What rallies did at the time and where we are today because people tried to show that they cared and change happened. So remember that. And Marvel Future Fight with this one is hopefully an example of it with what Netmarble did backing this out. And whether you believe in the tinfoil hat theory that it was a test and they expected this and they knew they were going to move it back, or we actually convinced them to move it back, it happened. Be happy about it and realize that the community made it happen. So clap for everybody involved. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, my little rant over here. Let me know what you think. Have a good one.